In the previous video, we read that the drover's wife puts the children to sleep on the tabletop in the kitchen and keeps a watch on the snake as she spends her time reading and sewing in the candlelight. He was a drover and started squatting here when they were married. The drought of 18 ruined him. He had to sacrifice the remnant of his flock and go droving again. He intends to move his family into the nearest town when he comes back, and in the meantime, his brother, who keeps a shanty on the main road, comes over about once a month with provisions. The wife has still a couple of cows, one horse, and a few sheep. The brother in law kills one of the latter occasionally, gives her what she needs of it, and takes the rest in return for other provisions. She is used to being left alone. She once lived like this for 18 months. As a girl, she built the usual castles in the air, but all her girlish hopes and aspirations have long been dead. She finds all the excitement and recreation she needs in the young lady's journal, and heaven help her, takes a pleasure in fashion plates. The drover had stopped that profession when they married and started farming this land, but lost all in a drought and had to return to droving. It is hard for the drover's wife when he is away, but his brother helps out occasionally. The drover's wife is accustomed to being alone. Her girlish dreams have vanished, and now she finds solace in the fashion pages of the magazine. Her husband is an Australian, and so is she. He is careless, but a good enough husband. If she had the means, he would take her to the city and keep her there like a princess. They are used to being apart, or at least she is. No use fretting, she says. He may forget sometimes that he is married, but if he has a good check when he comes back, he will give most of it to her. When he had money, he took her to the city several times, hired a railway sleeping compartment, and put up at the best hotels. He also bought her a buggy, but they had to sacrifice that along with the rest. Her careless husband is decent enough, even if he sometimes forgets they are married when he is away. He brings money and takes care of her. When he had money, he had bought a buggy, a horse cart, but had to sell it off in difficult times. The last two children were born in the bush. One while her husband was bringing a drunken doctor by force to attend to her. She was alone on this occasion and very weak. She had been ill with a fever. She prayed to God to send her assistance. God sent Black Mary, the whitest jinn in all the land, or at least, God sent King Jimmy first, and he sent Black Mary. He put his black face round the doorpost, took in the situation at a glance, and said cheerfully, "All right, missus, I bring my old woman. She down along a creek." Their last two children were born in the bush, and she was on her own, once because her husband had gone to fetch the drunken doctor. In his absence, King Jimmy, an aborigine, had poked his head in and saw what was happening, decided to bring his wife, Black Mary, to help out. One of the children died while she was here alone. She rode 19 miles for assistance, carrying the dead child. It must be near 1 or 2 o'clock. The fire is burning low. Alligator lies with his head resting on his paws and watches the wall. He is not a very beautiful dog, and the light shows numerous old wounds where the hair will not grow. He is afraid of nothing on the face of the earth or under it. Another time, a child died when she was all alone, and she had to carry it 19 miles looking for help. The fire burns low, and it is late. The fearless dog waits. He is tough and angry and has killed many snakes. He will probably die this way. He will tackle a bullock as readily as he will tackle a flea. He hates all other dogs except kangaroo dogs and has a marked dislike to friends or relations of the family. They seldom call, however. He sometimes makes friends with strangers. He hates snakes and has killed many, but he will be bitten someday and die. Most snake dogs end that way. Now and then, the bushwoman lays down her work and watches and listens and thinks. She thinks of things in her own life, for there is little else to think about. The dog is very alert and eager to help. He has protected the family several times in the past. Now, tired, the drover's wife lays down her work and watches and listens and thinks, though there is not much to think about. The rain will make the grass grow, and this reminds her how she fought a bushfire once while her husband was away. The grass was long and was very dry, and the fire threatened to burn her out. She put on an old pair of her husband's trousers and beat out the flames with a green bow till great drops of sooty perspiration stood out on her forehead, and she ran in streaks and it ran in streaks down her blackened arms. The sight of his mother in trousers greatly amused Tommy, who worked like a little hero by her side, but the terrified baby howled lustily for his mummy. The fire would have mastered her but for four excited bushmen who arrived in the nick of time. It was a mixed up affair all around. When she went to take up the baby, he screamed and struggled convulsively, thinking it was a black man. An alligator, trusting more to the child's sense than his own instinct, charged furiously and being old and slightly deaf, did not in his excitement at first recognize his mistress's voice, but continued to hang on to the moleskins until choked off by Tommy with the saddle strap. The dog's sorrow for his blunder and his anxiety to let it be known that it was all a mistake was as evident as his ragged tail and a 12-inch grin could make it. It was a glorious time for the boys, a day to look back to and talk about and laugh over for many years. There is nothing to do but think. The drover's wife remembers fighting a grass fire while her husband was away. She put on her husband's trousers and ran out to do what she could, with Tommy at her side. Four men riding by finally helped out to put out the fire. The trousers scared the baby though. An alligator attacked her when he heard the baby cry. He later felt bad, swishing his tail and smiling his canine smile. She thinks how she fought a flood during her husband's absence. She stood for hours in the drenching downpour and dug an overflow gutter to save the dam across the creek. But she could not save it. There are things that a bushwoman cannot do. Next morning, the dam was broken, and her heart was nearly broken too, for she thought how her husband would feel when he came home and saw the result of years of labor swept away. She cried then. There was also a flood she could not stop. It washed all her husband's hard work away. She also fought the pleuropneumonia, dosed and bled the few remaining cattle, and wept again when her two best cows died. Again she fought a mad bullock that besieged the house for a day. She made bullets and fired at him through cracks in the slabs with an old shotgun. He was dead in the morning. She skinned him and got 17 and sixpence for the hide. It is a very tough life for her. She fought the cattle flu, but her two best cows died. She had to kill the bullock who rampaged into the house and would not get out. She also fights the crows and eagles that have designs on her chickens. Her plan of campaign is very original. The children cry, Crow's mother, and she rushes out and aims a broomstick at the birds as though it were a gun and says, Bung! The crows leave in a hurry. They are cunning, but the woman's cunning is greater. She fought the crows and eagles too, and devised a game with the children to scare away the crows. Occasionally, a bushman in the horrors or a villainous looking sundowner comes and nearly scares the life out of her. She generally tells a suspicious looking stranger that her husband and two sons are at work below the dam and over at the yard, for he always cunningly inquires for the boss. She fights the evil swagmen who come by, trying to see if her husband is home. The drover's wife may be thin and brown and no longer have very many dreams of her own, but she is a doughty, stoic, and persevering figure in the wilds of the bush. She is consumed almost wholly with her work and her children's survival, and is prepared to do anything she can do to meet that end. She is smart and intuitive, and seems to waste little of her precious time bemoaning her fate. Rather, she meets every crisis that comes her way with unbending resilience. She may not be able to do everything. The grass fire would have won but for four men riding by who just arrived in time, and she cannot stop the flood from washing away the results of years of their labor, because there are things that a woman of the bush cannot do. While this phrase might seem to attribute these limitations to her gender, it could also be seen as a frank acknowledgement that going up against the vagaries of nature is not an easy feat, even for a strong bushwoman. Lawson's heroine is not completely without dreams. Despite her isolation and arduous living conditions, she admits to admiring the fashion pages of the Young Ladies' Journal and to dressing up and promenading in the lonely, barren countryside as if she was in a country. It is a quiet, lonely image, but the salient characteristic of this woman is her resignation. She may admire fashion and think about other lives, but she knows what she must do out in the bush, and if she were to leave, she would feel strange away from it.